CES is right around the corner, and there's no better person to discuss all the great exhibits you're going to see, speakers you're going to hear, and events you're going to experience than our very own CEO and President, Gary Shapiro. So join us as we go under the hood of CES with Gary Shapiro. Enjoy. This podcast brought to you by Dell, giving the modern workforce everything they need to securely connect, produce, and collaborate from anywhere at any time. Dell Technologies offers the industry's most comprehensive and innovative in-user portfolio, from individual workers to organizations of all sizes. Hello, and welcome to CES Tech Talk. I'm Jeff Joseph, the Senior Vice President of Communications and Strategic Relationships with the Consumer Technology Association, CTA. We are the proud owners and producers of CES, the world's largest annual innovation event, where everyone who's engaged in technology will convene in Las Vegas from January 9th through 12th, 2018, just a few days away to see what is the latest and greatest in tech. For more information, you can visit us online at ces.tech. And with me today, I'm very honored, very pleased to have what do I call you? The guru, the head guy, the chief, my boss, my friend, all of the above. Gary Shapiro, the President and CEO of the Consumer Technology Association, is with us today. Welcome, Gary.
Jeff, I am so honored to be here. All the 14 plus 7, 20 over years you've been with us, we've never done this.
We've never done this. We sit down and have a conversation that's recorded about CES. Well, let's jump right in. The thing that always amazes me that year after year we produce this great show. What's the secret to that success? Why is CES so important, and why have we been so successful in so many ways?
It's a combination of, like a lot of success. It's a tremendous luck, some thinking ahead, and the fact that we are fortunate enough to represent an industry which is always changing, always innovating, fundamentally changing the world. And we've worked very hard at defining the show broadly to welcome new categories, new players. A lot of association-owned shows are very restrictive, and they're very careful not to let potential new players in. And it's a culture here, including our board, which is, they're all incumbents by definition. They want to welcome the new players. And I remember my very first board meeting in 1981 when the chairman of the board was the largest exhibitor, then Panasonic. Uh-huh. And they're talking about a increase in the cost of the show, and he said, no matter what, we always have to be open so anyone with an idea in their garage can expose it to the thousands of retailers, buyers, investors, and others, because that's where the future of innovation is. It's people with ideas, and that's what our association stands for. That's what the show stands for. It truly is the showcase for innovation worldwide, and our staff, as you know, is dedicated to that principle that the smallest exhibitor, they're betting, they're stretching out their credit card, they're betting everything, and we have to treat them well because everything is on the line. For us, it's just, it's a job, and it's difficult and exhausting. For them, they're betting everything, and they could be the ones that change the world tomorrow if they get funding or a partner or a bigger company or a good story in the media. And a lot of them come there and do that, and that's especially exemplified in Eureka Park, where we have, we'll hit 800 different startup companies there. We're actually even helping subsidize, so it's not that expensive for them to be there, but they have to meet some strict criteria. But they all leave at the end of 4 days with a totally different idea of what their business is and what they started, and with context and customers and companies like Walmart go and place an order, or Mark Cuban makes an investment. Yeah. I mean, that's the stories of Eureka Park. It's just exhilarating to be there and see the future unfold.
That has become one of the most exciting parts of the show, or most popular parts of the show, that sort of plays on that theme of continued innovation. You said about 800 companies this year. How's that compare to previous years? We've seen growth?
Well, we had 600 in 2017 and 500-something, 50 the year before. We started just about 80 or 100 or so the very first year, 5 or 6 years ago. But now it's grown, and it is exhilarating because there's so much variety there, and it is startups with passion and enthusiasm. Of course, what we try to do with the rest of the show is to categorize more by area of like audio and video and things like that, or by new areas. We call them marketplaces, focused on newer categories, because the truth is, when the media and when buyers and investors see a grouping of categories in a new area, they're more confident that it's a real area. I mean, occasionally there's the breakthrough company that, done something all alone by itself and creates a category. But the reality is, technology often goes in leaps and bounds, but it more often goes in small little steps and jumps.
You're not going to see a tablet every year. I'm sorry.
You won't, or a smartphone or something like, or a DBS dish or a CD player or VCR or some of the other things we've seen break out at CES.
All right, the long list. I want to go back to the point you made earlier that I love, that we try to keep it a place where the smallest company can come and that they really put everything they have on the line to break through and introduce their product. I love the story about a member company of ours, Teal Audio, and Kathy Gordon. Can you share that story with our listeners? 'Cause I think it's really indicative of the story that you're telling of that overall narrative. And
yeah, Kathy and her partner were just out of college, and her partner had an idea for a loudspeaker. He was an engineer, and they would do it different and better, and they created a prototype. They literally packed all their lunches and dinners, and they drove, I think it was about 1,000 miles. I think it was to Chicago then, and they basically had one speaker prototype. And they got orders at that show, and that allowed them to finance manufacturing. And Kathy, who's one of the most charming, smartest people, just felt so indebted to the experience we gave her that she became one of our top volunteers and rose to the level of chairman. She was our first female chairman, a small business, and a motivator for our staff. Because like a lot of our volunteers, they basically, their companies started very tiny at our show, and they grew. And every big company starts small, right. and they have a vision. Obviously, a lot of them don't make it, or they get bored, or they get merged. But even talking to Bill Gates about the value of a show like CES, or at the time Comdex, is that he said, "You guys allowed me to grow. You did so much for our company at Microsoft, and I appreciate it." And I'll never forget when he said that. It meant so much to me that a company as big as Microsoft sees the value in what we do. And just having heard the chairman of the FCC speak, and when he talked about the decline because of social media, frankly, there's a negative aspect, and that is that we're less friendly to each other. We're mean. We're hostile. We hide behind anonymity. And he says, what we lost is when you go and you meet someone and you shake your hand and you look them eye to eye and face to face, you're less likely to disagree in a very violent way. And part of the challenge we're facing in society today is we've become a divided nation, a divided world, on the basis of the fact that we're attacking each other anonymously without even viewing each other as people. And when you have an event like a trade show or a conference or a meeting, the reason we still get together face-to-face is because ultimately we're human beings. And as much as I'm passionate about and love technology, there's nothing like the 5-sense experience of a trade show like CES, where you get and you figure out whether you can feel and trust and like the other person you're dealing with, and then there's the value of serendipity, where it's this chance encounters of something new, something inspiring. And if you think about what innovation and creativity is, it's the ability to put disparate things together in a way that has value. Well, that's what CES is about, with some 4,000 different companies showing products and over 170,000 people from the industry there. You're always running into people, meeting people on cab lines or on buses or at exhibits, and you're seeing things and you're creating new business ideas. And the CEOs and the CXOs that go to CES, they say the same thing to me. They say, it is inspiring. It gives me big ideas. I go back home, I'm charged up, and I have new business ideas. I have new contacts. I have partners. And where the world used to be a vertical world of you're in one industry and you're walled off and you succeed in that industry, today you succeed only as a company if you go outside your vertical, if you partner with other verticals, and frankly, every company is now a tech company. And you put all those ingredients together, and it goes back to your question about why have we succeeded. We've succeeded because technology's taken off in a big way, and we've been fortunate enough to be there to capture a lot of the innovation at CES and be defined for the world as the world's most important innovation event.
And it's amazing to see how the show's changed even in the time that I've been engaged. When I first started, I think our top line was 90,000 attendees, and the new technologies, or the early digital technologies, and then now we have over 170,000 attendees this year we're looking at.
Yes.
For 2018.
And we've definitely grown, and we're still one of the only shows in the United States that actually has an independent audit. And we definitely count how many people come. We qualify them. It's not open to consumers. It's just to people with some type of connection with the industry, whether it's media or investors or buyers or sellers or government officials. And we increasingly get a lot of those because they want to see the future as well and make sure their country's going in the right direction. And what we're seeing at CES is some of the categories like we didn't have last year. We didn't have smart cities. We're going quickly to self-driving cars and artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, and all these things which 10 years ago weren't even in our vocabulary, and now they're major parts of CES.
It's an amazing story, and it says a lot about how CES both reflects and helps drive the growth of that. Well, let's jump into that a little bit. As we look to January, as we look a couple of days away, what will be new this year? I know each year we try to reinvent the show and try to bring new products and new technologies to showcase to attendees. Can you give us a glimpse in some of the new areas of focus that will be at the show this year?
Well, I mentioned smart cities. We'll have, we're just starting that as we're going towards 5G, the new form of communications as a country. That's very important. And we'll have almost 40 exhibitors there. We'll have a focus on artificial intelligence. We'll have a marketplace there, which is pretty big. We'll have something called Design and Source Marketplace. For the first time, we're saying if you just have an idea and you want to get that manufactured, executed, designed, sold, you could go here and you could find out companies that want to do that. The companies themselves don't have well-known brands,
right,
and they don't really produce products for themselves, but they help others.
Wow.
And that'll be very, very big. We expect some 760 companies, manufacturers from around the world, design companies from all over.
And that's brand new. That's
brand new. We'll have a high-tech retailing summit. We haven't had that before. We have a conference on digital money, a focus on that. And we have something called the CES Sports Zone, which I believe you had something to do with. And Baron Davis, the two-time NBA All-Star, is not only from the sports world, he'll be an ambassador for the show in a sense, talking about some of the things we're doing there. And also we'll have phenomenal growth in vehicle technology. We'll have almost 300,000 square feet with 170-plus exhibitors. Showing off the latest, coolest, neatest stuff in self-driving, electric, in all the things that go into automobiles and mobility in this future world. I don't know. That might be the biggest car show in America at that size in terms of net square feet. And, of course, we have something called C-Space, which, again, that didn't exist a few years ago, but that'll be essentially 3 hotels now where we'll have not only a bunch of exhibitors and a huge amount of square feet, but we'll have the chief marketing officers from the major companies around the world figuring out how in this new marketplace of different platforms and social media, how you get your brand out there in a different way. It's no longer about issuing a press release and sending it out to newspapers and magazines. It's really about using social media, using platforms and traditional media in a way where you get feedback, it makes sense, and it defines who you are. And it changes. Honestly, the CES isn't even enough to keep up. It changes every few months because once someone discovers something, it's probably very inexpensive that works, then everyone else jumps on it.
Right.
And then you got to discover the next thing because it gets very expensive very quickly to reach those same consumers.
So let's look at what you just talked about. You're talking about smart cities. You're talking about self-driving vehicles. You're talking about marketers. This is not a tech show. This is not my CES when I started. How do you determine where to grow and how to add these new things and see what's coming next?
Well, we don't call it the Consumer Electronics Show. We call it CES, and that's intentionally. It's not even an acronym. It's just 3 letters, but it's really a focus on innovation. And some 2/3 of the show still focus on selling stuff to consumers, products, but I'd estimate about 1/3, more or less, is aimed at business-to-business things and like things like smart cities and different components that go into cars and C-Space and some of the marketplaces we have. The vehicle technology area is one which is so big that it's not all about the cars. It's about the car manufacturers buying the technology and seeing their own ecosystem there, which is what they love about this show. It's a trade show. It's not a consumer show. How do we do it? Well, our strategy has been to aggressively partner with those that are the leading edge, whether they be associations or magazines or groups of entrepreneurs that have created something like in the robotics area or some other area. And we also have, as you know, an incredibly bright, committed, passionate, eager staff to jump on the next thing. Like we jumped on drones and robotics and AR and VR and so many things that we see coming down the road. And the industry looks to us because we help them. We help them with public policy. We help them with standards. We help them make sure that incumbents are not fighting to keep them out of the marketplace. For example, what we've done with Airbnb and Lyft and Uber and others is make sure the world is comfortable. And we're not winning every battle, obviously, but new things are coming which disrupt old ways of doing business. And we feel it's our passion and our obligation, our duty to make the world better, to give people choice, to empower people more by encouraging these new services, these new products. I mean, today, a kid coming out of college may not want a driver's license, and they may not want to live near public transportation because of Uber and Lyft. They have new options. Or even poorer people who are just trying to get to their job. They may not have to buy a car. They have a new option that didn't exist just a few years ago. And we think that's very important. Or if you, as is most common, the widowed homeowner, now she can rent out her place on an Airbnb and do that anywhere in the city. Now, do hotels like that? Honestly, they don't. Yeah. Do taxi cab drivers like Uber? Do the music companies love Pandora and some of the other groups that are part of us and then we're always fighting for new streaming services? And it's just the way it goes back to our history. of how we fought for the legality of the VCR. We fight for the legality of new things that come in there. And I know it's disruptive. It's disruptive to people's livelihood and jobs because they've always done things a certain way. The way 150 years ago, the horse and buggy manufacturer disliked the car. But the reality is that the history of the human race is about progress, about getting better, and we're living much longer than we used to. We're going to be healthier than we used to, and that we still have a lot of progress ahead of us. I mean, we have the ability to end human suffering, to reduce disease, to do so many great things that, there shouldn't be people that are hungry and uncomfortable in the world. And where technology and innovation is going to be the answer there. We'll have other problems, I'm sure, and problems we have to address, like what's the future of work? What kind of jobs will be out there? How will people become satisfied? How do we make sure that there's still an opportunity for people to rise up and that there's not a permanent underclass? Those are the issues that we really should be clearing the underbrush of all the other issues, the Maslow hierarchy, to deal with people's, in a sense, issues of happiness.
Right.
How do we make sure people are satisfied and happy and feel that they're productive? And that's issues we have to have really serious discussions about.
The first thing I have to say is that for a little career advice, you should be a little more passionate about your job.
Thanks, Jeff.
It's just amazing. Every time I hear you speak, it's just amazing how that comes through. And I'll note that one, a lot of what Gary was talking about is work that we at CTA do, and we'll come back to a little bit to explain who we are and whatnot. And two, some of those issues that you raised are issues that we've explored in other podcasts. So go and download some future of work and some of these other issues that we've touched on. So I'm going to come back to CTA and some of those policy issues, but I want to continue on the show theme a little bit and tell people what to expect. So a big part of the show. Big, huge speakers, big keynote stage, one of the most coveted speaking platforms in the world. Can you tell us a little bit about keynoters and who we can expect to hear from?
Sure. We have amazing set of CEOs speaking, actually. We have the CEO of Intel kicking us off the night before Intel before the show starts, and we have the CEO of Ford the next morning. We got Huawei, from a big company growing from China that's well-known around the world. We have the CEO of Lyft as a keynoter. We have so many different companies. I'm afraid to just start narrowing down because we have over 1,000 speakers.
Wow.
And there's so many different ones in different categories of the future. And, of course, we have a lot of policymakers. We'll have the Secretary of Transportation, Elaine Chao, as well as every FCC commissioner and FTC commissioner and the chairman, and people from the White House, people from Democrats, Republicans, you name it. And plus we have ministers coming from several countries. The CES is a global event. It's not just a U.S. event the way many events are. About 1/3 of the people that come are from outside the United States. So we had 65,000 people come from outside the United States to CES. Wow. It's very rare, actually, because the truth is we don't, as a nation, dominate in trade shows. But with the CES and other shows like the NAB and Home Builders and others, we actually have these amazing global shows. And it's very important. It's important, when you have 60,000 people come to the U.S., they're spending a lot of money in the U.S. It's actually, it's travelers to the U.S. are very important for our economy. And, they don't require that much government service. They don't have to be educated or, go on welfare or have other things that government spends money on. And every country recognizes that travel is important. But we are blessed in Las Vegas with an incredible 3 of the 10 largest convention centers in the country, more hotel rooms than any other city in the country, over 150,000 rooms, as well as a global world-class airport and an environment of entertainment and food that's exceptional, and also, frankly, a workforce that is dedicated to the experience of the people who come, and highly skilled. I mean, these booths that are built are engineering masterpieces. They're craftsmen. There's carpentry, electricians. There's so many, the Teamsters and others that make them happen. There's a lot of pride, and it happens quickly. A city is built overnight. I mean, and the only sad moment which you've experienced is at 4 o'clock on the final day of the show, all of a sudden, it seems to come down in a matter of hours. And what was, 1 hour before a gleaming city is in shambles.
Exactly.
Within an hour.
For those of you who haven't been to CES previously, it is an amazing experience. I remember when I first started, I'd worked political conventions, I'd worked labor union events, I'd worked big events, and I thought I knew. But until you walk the show floor, until you step in, it's hard to imagine the size, the scope, the scale of these exhibits and the overall show. And Gary, with that, in many ways, that size to some people, that's a great thing. You want to be overwhelmed and have that incredible experience and the serendipity that comes with that. For others, it can be a bit overwhelming and difficult to find things. How do you organize the show in a way that allows people to find what they need to find community, and while still experiencing that serendipity that you referenced earlier?
Well, I want to tell you a secret I've never told you before, Jeff.
All right, I'm listening.
It's really 50 different events. So actually, there's a lot of many vertical areas and little small areas of the show that have their own constituency. Birds of a feather flocking together. They have their own cocktail parties. They have their own, in a sense, their own conference session. If you go to a conference session on a specific issue, you are part of a community. If you're at the exhibits there. And we do some amazing things with our apps. They download the app ahead of time so you can plan where you're going to be and what you're going to do. And most people say, wow, when they get there the first time, it is overwhelming, and they quickly learn that in Las Vegas, things are further than they appear when you're walking.
That's very true.
But we have invest 7 figures in a transportation system. We use every bus, west of the Mississippi. We have a limo system. We have maps. We have You Are Here. We invest heavily, believe it or not, in extra thick carpeting so people are comfortable. We tell people to drink a lot of water, and we try to provide as much assistance as possible. And as you know, we survey relentlessly about what people liked and what they didn't like, and we try to focus heavily on operations. And I think it's fair to say our operational excellence is the platinum standard for the trade show world in terms of organization, information, infrastructure, transportation, and pure planning. And we spend a lot of time on that, and we always can get better. And the most important question we actually asked those that attended is, what did you think? What kind of job we did? What do you think about our staff? And the numbers come back, at least till date, really, really high. And that's what really gets me going, is that as I tell our employees, you've heard this every year for at least 15 years now, everyone makes a decision whether or not they want to go there. Getting on a plane is not as much fun as it used to be. Right. It's a long flight. You're investing your time. You're investing your money or your company's money. It's an option. And when people are making this decision, they'll come up with a business justification, but you got to give them as many as possible, and you have to make them want to go. They have to really want to go, so they'll come up even say, here's a business justification. Yeah. So the fact that they get energized and they get thrilled and they meet people and they get excited and they're optimistic, and as you know, we always try to make it different every year with different new things about the show. That's very important, and our satisfaction rate is really, really high. I mean, we are not Burning Man. This is not like where you're going to walk around and do fun things in a semi-naked environment.
Which may not be a bad thing.
Right, and South by Southwest is very different. It's more of a cultural event and a public event. We are a business trade event, and it's not like how some people view, it used to be Las Vegas, majority of it's all parties and drinking and gambling. The truth is sometimes the casinos don't love us because people have to work so hard when they're there. And anyone who's ever done it knows that standing in a booth for 4 days is really difficult and tiring. But it is an educational experience that everyone in business should go through at some point in their life. Because you know what? It's easy to take out an ad and even put ads on social media. To actually market and sell and deal with real people face to face, you got to put your A game on. You got to be there. You can't be hungover. You got to be hydrated. I mean, I start resting from Thanksgiving on. My exercise, my food intake, I monitor it. This is like preparing for the Super Bowl as far as I'm concerned. And this is my game every year.
It's your game. It is a marathon. Let me go there. I will go there. So people see you. They see you on the keynote stage. They read your commentary. They hear you on podcasts. You read your interviews. But what's a day like at CES for Gary Shapiro?
Well, there's a great video link on our website if you really want to watch it.
Nice setup.
It is. It's different every day. I mean, the truth is, part of it is like you're hosting dignitaries from abroad, and it's very important. I feel like I'm an ambassador from the United States in part, and when you have 60,000 people, a lot of them important government officials, you have a lot of CEOs from around the world. There's definitely people reaching for me all the time. We do a lot of planning as to how I spend my time. We plot out the routes. We have, it's very careful. So a lot of it. I mean, my other dirty list was I don't ever see CES. I'm walking from one spot to another, and I catch things, and occasionally I'll I'll latch on to the governor's or a senator's or a CEO's tour just because I'm walking with that very important person. I remember walking around with now the president of France, Emmanuel Macron, and I spent 45 minutes with him, and I got to see the CES, actually, because people were giving us information about it. But generally, nobody actually sees the entire CES. Nobody could physically see. If you take the 4 days of the show, divided by 4,000, you would have to spend 14 seconds at every exhibit. to make it really actually see every exhibit.
Right,
so
right.
you can't.
You just can't physically do it. I often talk about, it's the old parable of the blind man and the elephant, right? You see one part, I see one part, and then
Absolutely.
try to figure out the whole as it comes together. You've referenced several times during our discussion today these government officials, both domestic with Secretary Chow coming and President Macron, who's been in the past. Why do government officials from around the world, why do they come to CES?
They come for different reasons, but generally I think that what I've learned, despite the popular conception of government officials being bad, horrible people that are in it for ego and self-interest and to take money, my experience has been, not only in the U.S. but globally, is that people want to better the lot of their citizens in their country. And they really, it's extremely hard work. They're away from their families. And yeah, there's a lot of ego stroking that goes on, but they see the CES as an opportunity to see the future, to learn things, to meet people, to encourage businesses perhaps to go to their country, to see what type of communication system or devices in the future. Because in almost every country, including the U.S., the government's the biggest purchaser there is. They're looking to buy, and buying off the shelf, and some of the stuff they see in the future is important to them, and especially when we're talking about smart cities and 5G and the Internet of Things and robotics and artificial intelligence. And the things we're talking about are the future.
We're about to wrap up, but let's ask you one last CES question. What are you looking forward to at CES 2018?
You know, when you first walk into the hall on opening day and you look and you see the excitement, the anticipation, you see these gleaming exhibits and companies putting their best, like they're almost their Easter Sunday best in their exhibits and displaying themselves and their products the way they want the world to perceive them. And you see the excitement and the new technologies and oh, wow, have you seen that, or have you seen this, or won't that be a cool product, or won't that help my aunt with her heart problem or her vision problem? And you realize that people are personally touched and excited, and we're making a difference in human lives. I get that feeling as I walk through the show floors when I hear the stories, or I see an entrepreneur that, like a Benji Luck, where an immigrant to the United States creates a company out of nothing, and then he goes through CES, I might add, goes on Shark Tank and gets major funding.
And wins, right?
And wins,
yeah, it was unbelievable. It was very gratifying. Well, thank you so much, Gary. It's always such a great pleasure.
Thank you,
so
Jeff.
Fun
it's
to
always
talk with
great.
You. I could talk to you for hours, but unfortunately,
you
we don't
will.
have that much time. And I will. I'll see you tomorrow, which is great for me. So thank you all for joining us on CES Tech Talk. Our guest today has been Gary Shapiro, the president and CEO of the Consumer Technology Association. You will see him running, walking on stage everywhere around CES 2018 in just a few days. I'm running January 9th through 12th in Las Vegas, Nevada. For more on CES, visit us at ces.tech. And to learn more about CTA, the Consumer Technology Association, all the great work we do throughout the year, including lobbying and informing the public on some of these issues we've discussed, visit cta.tech. Thanks for joining us on CES Tech Talk. Don't miss the Dell experience at CES. Every experience becomes more cinematic with Dell's latest virtual reality, PC gaming, and innovative computing experiences. January 9th through the 11th from 10 to 5 at the Yardbird within the Venetian. Follow breaking Dell news online at #DellExperience. Thank you for listening to CES Tech Talk. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. You can get more information on the CES show in January at ces.tech. Our show is produced by Tina Anthony. John Lindsay is our sound engineer. And me, I'm Jeff Joseph.